Hi everyone, welcome to A Godly Home. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about short-term power outages. And I am an expert on this because my power goes out all the time. Last week it was on and off all week and it was just a little bit windy out. We weren't having storms or anything like that. When we have storms, it can be very often. And so I've lived like this for 16 years. That's how long I've been in my house. And I really know what you actually need and what you don't need. And I wanted to talk to you guys about it because I see so many videos where they're making it sound like you need so much stuff that I don't know how anybody would have the finances to even get started. So we're going to be talking about the actual needs, cheap alternatives, things like that. And I did go one time for 2 weeks straight without any power. My private electric pole came down in the winter. And I have also lived with a dry well and all sorts of things going on that's kind of similar to a power outage. So I can answer a lot of you guys' questions. I can do more videos on this topic if you guys really enjoy this. But let's get started. If you want to see how I make coffee during a power outage, then you can watch that at the end of this video. I'll actually be showing that because I don't want to just talk. I want to actually show you something useful. Okay, so there are a few basic needs that you have during power outages. And I will read over the list quickly and then we'll talk about each one more in depth as we go. Okay, so you need food, water, heat, light, a way to cook, a way to use the bathroom, and some sort of contact with the outside world. Okay, so first of all, on food, it's very good to keep some simple things on hand that you could cook in a power outage that are not going to require a lot of dishes or an oven or a microwave. So simple things that when you put them on the stove, it's like a one skillet or something like that. And you don't want things necessarily that use a lot of water either because you may be limited on water. So like you could do bacon and eggs and hash all in the same pan. You know, cook the bacon, take it out, cook the hash, take it out, then cook your eggs. When you get done, you've only got one dish to wash. So think of things like that. And if you want me to do videos on power outage meals, I certainly can do that. I can do the cooking and the cleanup and show you all of it. Okay, now, water. If you live in a city or a town for a short-term power outage, you're still going to have water. You're going to be able to turn on the faucet and you're going to be able to draw your water, flush your toilet, all of that type stuff. Depending on how your water is heated, you probably won't have hot water. You'll need to heat water if you need hot water, but you will have water. That's your advantage. For those of us that live in the country and we're on a well, unless we have a generator, we're not going to have water. So there's so many solutions for that. I keep just some empty cranberry juice jugs full of water right in my kitchen that I can get a hold of in a power outage. And I find for a family of 3 here in Maine, it's not super hot or anything. We can get by on 1 gallon of water per day for our drinking, cooking water. Now, the water that we need for dishes, flushing the toilet, if it was a power outage that was going to be several days, if we needed to wash clothes or something like that, we need to get from a different source. we're not going to be taking that out of our drinking water. So what we do is if we hear there's going to be a big snowstorm or something that we think might give us a power outage, we fill all of our big kettles, tea kettles, everything the night before we go to bed. We put the plug in the bathtub. We fill that up with water because you can flush the toilet by scooping water in like a scrub bucket and dumping it all in the toilet at once fast. So we get as much water as we can if we have any notice. Like where I live, there's never much notice. Yes, if they say a big storm, but it could just be a power outage for absolutely no reason, honestly. That's just the way it is out here. So, so you do that first. But then what are your other water sources? Well, if it's raining, then you can put a bucket outside to catch rain, and you can use like a little board or something to direct the rain into the bucket. If it's a snowstorm, then you've got all the snow you can scoop, heat that up on your stove, and you've got the water for dishes and everything extra that you need like that. So that's no big deal. But if it's not raining and it's not snowing, then do you have a spring nearby? Do you have a brook? Do you have a lake, a river, a pond that you can drive to or walk to get water if you need some water for that kind of stuff? Now, like where I am, I have an old hand-dug well. I have a pond just down the hill from me. I have a lake and a river within a couple miles from me. I have up in the woods near my house, like a little wet run area that I could easily get water from that's like flowing all year. So I have all kinds of sources near me if I need some additional water that I'm able to get to do these other things. So just be thinking about that. But I wouldn't go buy a whole bunch of water. I would just figure out a gallon a day for every 3 people for your drinking and be thinking about other sources for water. Now, heat. If you live in a cold climate, then you're going to need some sort of heat, and you need to think about how much heat you need, because if it's really cold, you don't want the pipes to freeze in your house. But if it's not super cold, then you need like maybe enough heat just to keep yourself comfortable, and maybe you could like put up blankets and do it in one room or whatever. At this point in our life, we have a generator, but that was never the case for many years. Before that, we had a wood stove, but they make these propane heaters that is just one little thing that screws on like a barbecue size propane tank that would heat up pretty well. I'll include a picture of that. Make sure it's for indoor use. Something like that might work well. A propane heater, like a big one in the room that's like in the wall, that might work out really well. So just be thinking about your different things. Like we use a pellet stove as our main source of heat, and we didn't have an issue with heat with a power outage last month, but we had the stove quit, so we had to have backup heat while we were waiting for the part to come. So heat is something kind of to think about anyways, even if you're not prone to power outages. Just make sure you always have a second plan for heat if you live in a cold area. Okay, light. Light can be so simple, you guys, really. I love these tall candles from Dollar Tree. I keep several of these on my decorative window between my kitchen and living room, and when the power goes out, I just immediately light them. And they last a long time. I've had this one for 2 years and have lit it every evening during a power outage. I do plan, if it's a power outage, to go to bed early, though. I'm only lighting these long enough to fix supper. Also at Dollar Tree, they have these little battery operated lanterns. These work pretty good. I have one of these setting in every room So when the power goes out often, I can just turn it on. I don't have to go looking for lights. I set one in the bathroom and leave it on all night in case somebody needs to get up to the bathroom. So I prefer that over like having one big lantern, if that's going to be your only thing. Like if you've got so much to spend, you know what I'm saying, on power outage lighting, don't go spend it all on one lantern because you can't divide that up. So like my son will take one of those Dollar Tree lanterns up to bed. He can use it to get up and down the stairs at night. We got one in our bedroom to get back and forth to the bathroom. And then we've got one in the kitchen, in the living room, and one in the bathroom, and one in the hallway. You see where I'm going with this? And this is a nice one that my son bought me last year for Christmas, and I do absolutely love this. I already have the Ryobi tools. I already have, so I already have the batteries. So this is great because I can charge my phone on it. It gives off a good amount of light. It has a low and a high setting. But this is a splurge. This is something that my son thought of, hey, Mom would like that because we always have power outages. That would be even better than what she currently uses. But don't go spend all that money, first thing. Those Dollar Tree ones will do really well. Now, you're going to need strike anywhere matches or matches, lighters, something like that. You need to be able to light these candles and these things. Don't forget that. All right, now a way to cook. So you can use a Coleman stove with the little portable tanks. Here is the Coleman stove and the portable tank. I love mine. It's just, I can't say enough good about it. But if you don't have that much money to spend, you can get the single burner one that screws onto the tank, and I will include photos. Here is a single burner. We've used these four-wheeling, and it takes the same tank. And one burner, we've already talked about keeping meals to one skillet, one pot, that type of thing. So something like that to cook on. Now, if you heat with a wood stove, you can cook on the wood stove. I used to do that. Mine wasn't like a wood cook stove, but still I could put stuff on the top there and, make some food if I needed to. All right. Also, a rocket stove. That would be a good idea. Or like an outdoor fire pit. If you have a barbecue grill, especially if you have like that little side burner on there, that works out good, and then you wouldn't have to get anything extra. A charcoal grill or those little hibachi grills, just the little travel ones. When I first moved in this house was a complete got, and we didn't have anything to cook on or anything when we first got the house. And we had just one of those little hibachi grills, and we did everything on there. We heated our water for dishes and our water for baths, and we cooked on it. And those are very inexpensive, either charcoal or the propane versions. Maybe even some sort of a little solar stove if you live in a place that you get good hot sunlight, all the time. In Maine, like in the winter, forget it. You would never get anything cooked on one of those. I have even seen people take a torch and heat food up with that. Put a hot dog on a screwdriver, put a hot dog on a fork, hold it over the torch, heat it up, you're good to go. Sometimes just look around and think outside the box and gather up everything you can gather in advance so that your list is very small, so you're not overwhelmed about getting prepared for these things. Okay, now, way to use the bathroom. Once again, if you live in a city or a town, you're going to still have cold water and be able to flush your toilet. If you live in the country, you cannot flush your toilet. I mean, if you filled up the bathtub, you've got a few flushes there. If you wait and flush when you absolutely have to, That will get you through if it's just a day or two. But if you're talking like they're estimating you're going to be a week or so before you get the power on, then that's not going to cut it. Now, if you live like I do with woods around you, the most obvious thing is you can just take your toilet paper and run up to the woods if you need to. But if you have little kids or you don't necessarily have that much privacy, then what I used to do, I call it a redneck potty. I would grab a 5-gallon pail from down in the basement, take my toilet seat off of my toilet and stick it on the pail. Now, you can either just go like that and then wash it out, or you can put a trash bag in there. I used to use those shopping bags. Of course, they don't give those to us now. Put those in there. You can buy special bags. You can even buy a special little toilet seat that goes on a bucket. I've never used this, but here it is. But that's going to be a real cheap bathroom thing that you can do, really inexpensive. They have porta toilets. Those are kind of pricey at this point, where you put the chemical in, and I'll include a picture. I do have one of these now, and they are very nice, but if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. But it's not really necessary unless you have the extra to spend. A commode. Maybe you have an elderly family member living with you that already has a commode, or maybe you can get a hold of a commode, inexpensive or something like that. A commode would work just fine. All right, now a way to make a phone call or whatever. I have a landline still because my power's out all the time. I need to be able to make a phone call. I have one of the old telephones that you just plug in, not cordless, just a plug-in regular phone that I can use when the power is out. If you don't have a landline, then you need to make sure you have a way to charge your phone, because you might need to call somewhere or receive a call, even in like an emergency, you know. So what do? Well, the most obvious is if you have a vehicle, if you own a vehicle, then you can just turn on your vehicle long enough to charge up your phone and you're good to go. But if you don't, let's say you don't, then the next thing I would recommend would be one of these emergency radios. This is my husband's. He loves it. And you power this up by cranking this handle. It includes a light. It includes your radio. And it includes a place to charge your telephone. That's going to be your cheapest. And I like that it's multi-purpose. You have all of it and you just wind it up. So that's really neat. Anything that I show a picture for in this video, I will also include a link in the description box. I won't get any kickback on that. I'm in Maine. We're not allowed to have affiliate links here. But it might be helpful to you, you know, instead of like, well, what was that product she showed? Is this the exact one, to have a link? Here's a photo of a similar radio. Okay, that is everything that is essential. Very inexpensive to get going, especially if you look around your house and think outside the box and think, okay, I need these things, but what do I have? What can I use? What do I need? And I would recommend really preparing for this. There is so many reasons why you could have a short-term power outage. I don't want to go the whole we're going to have a long-term power outage and scare everybody, because I don't know as if we are. But short-term power outages, we all deal with them, some of us more than others. But you know, and on the food thing, if we're in the country, we probably already have a good amount of food on hand. But I know some other people in other areas, they might shop by the day or something like that. And you might think, well, a power outage isn't going to stop me from being able to grocery shop because my store has a generator. But you know, one time we had a power outage, and when I walked down to the end of my driveway to see what was going on, we had trees down on both sides of our driveway and we couldn't get out of town. And they were quite a while actually getting that straightened out because there was so many power outages all over the state and stuff like that. So it's really good to have some stuff on hand that you can have in a power outage like that. Now, I have never had a problem with food spoiling in my refrigerator or my freezer or anything like that. I keep the door shut. If I need something out of there, it's very quickly open the door, get something out, shut the door, you know, think about what I want in advance. It's not hot here. That's a big difference. You know, if you're in someplace hot, you're probably gonna have a problem with that. But it's not here. My freezer, you know, there's enough frozen stuff in my freezer to keep everything frozen for probably a week, honestly. But if I thought I was going to have a problem, then I wouldn't hesitate just to pull stuff out of there and put it in coolers and put it outside if it's in the winter. But I don't keep so much stuff in my freezer. Like, I don't have multiple deep freezers or anything like that. I just have a good size freezer on top of my refrigerator that holds probably 50 pounds of meat, and that's like jam packed full. You'd have to really wrestle, you know, to get the door shut. So, but if you're in a hot climate, that is kind of something to think about. And, you know, if you can afford a generator, then you could at least, even if it was a small one, like you might not want to go a huge generator, but maybe enough just to run your freezer or something like that. So you can think about that stuff. But in a real emergency situation, I guess, if you lost everything in your freezer, that would be pretty minor if everybody was fed and clean and all their basic necessities were taken care of. And, you know, I definitely would have some canned goods and things on hand in case of a weird situation like that. Okay, if you want to see how I have made this wonderful power outage coffee, come with me and I will show you. Okay, let's get going on this. I have the dials right here. This one's for the left burner, this one's for the right burner. We'll go ahead and start by getting the stove lit. Okay. And you can adjust your flame however much you want. All right, now I have a cranberry juice jug full of some tap water, and I keep this full all the time. I have enough power outages. It's never a problem to get it used in time. But if you don't, I would change them out every 3 months or so. Measure your water if you're in a real power outage, because you don't want to waste. So if we're making coffee, I want 2 cups, and that's what I'm going to make, but you can increase however much for however much you're going to drink. Okay, now I am going to add my coffee, any ground coffee you've got. I'm going to add just 2 tablespoons. And I mean, if you had instant coffee, you could just boil your water and make instant coffee. But it's a little more expensive, and I don't usually have it. And I know a lot of you wouldn't normally have it. Okay, guys, I was gabbing to you and I wasn't paying attention. You want 1 heaping tablespoon for each 2 mugs of coffee. So I'm going to go ahead and make this 4 mugs of coffee because I put the 2 tablespoons in. Okay, we're just going to wait for that to boil. Now, I'm old-fashioned, and I make my coffee in an old-fashioned percolator pot like this every day anyways on my regular electric stove. But not everybody has a pot like this, so that's why I wanted to show it in the kettle, okay? But if you have a pot like this and you want me to show how I do my coffee, leave me a comment and I can show you that in another video. And you can see this is getting hot. Okay, there it goes, coming to a boil. Shut it right off. And then the next thing I'm going to do is let this just sit here for just a minute. Okay, now I got some cold water here in my jug, and I'm going to hit this. And what that'll do is that'll drive those grounds right to the bottom. Okay, that'll help out quite a bit. Okay, now I have this little strainer here that fits right over a cup perfectly. I got mine from my general store, but I'm pretty sure I've seen them into Dollar Tree. And if you didn't make quite as much coffee, then you can just go ahead and pour this into your cup. But I'm going to ladle it in because I made quite a bit of coffee. Now, what I would do with this, if it was a real power outage, if I happen to have a thermos or one of those travel mugs or whatever that keeps stuff hot a long time, I would get the rest of this strained right out and into something like that so that I don't have to waste propane and coffee to make this later. You just have it all ready to go. Now you could put some canned milk in it. You could put some like coffee mate creamer, or I have like some powdered dry milk here. I prefer the canned milk. If you like sugar, add a little sugar. There's nothing like camp coffee, really. These canned milks are such a mess since they made that pull-back lid on them. It's just crazy how messy they are now. And there it is. Let's take a look at how many grounds we actually got out of that. That's it. Just a few, because when we hit that with that cold water, that drove those grounds right down in there. So even if you don't have a a little strainer like that, you'll still do just fine with this. I call this cowboy coffee.